Hi there. I recently watched the coverage of this game, von Manstein's Backhand Blow, on the Hex to Hexes war game YouTube channel, and this is a game I've played twice face to face. I haven't done any video coverage of it because it was face to face. And it really inspired me to get it out again. It's one of my favourite games. Well, it's hard to say, isn't it, when you've only played it twice, but it's a game that really impressed me. It's easy to play, and it's full of interesting moments and decisions throughout the game. So it inspired me to get it out and play it again. And not least because in his playthrough, the Germans were thrashing the Russians right from the beginning, and he stopped the game at the game turn 7 or 8, I think, because with the German victory, it goes up to 17 game turns. You have the game turn track here, there's the 17th. And I as I was watching it, I was thinking, hang on, that can't be right. The Germans are just doing too well. I remember playing as the Russians. I don't remember which side I played the second game. I think it might have been the Russians again. And I know I got a victory in the game that I remember as the Russians. So I thought, let me play it again and see if there was... see if I could... if the same thing would happen to me. And so I just played a game of it, and the Germans won a victory on game turn 7. And I don't know, I must have just played the Russians really badly. So anyway, long story short, I want to play it again, this time really focusing on the Russians. I think I tend to play on the sort of bias on the defenders as the defender in many games, as I did in the last one, the Germans defending in this game, so to speak, because... the attacker kind of, is on the full-on onslaught, the defender's on the back foot, so kind of tend to bias the underdog. So in this game I'm going to concentrate more on the Russians and make myself biased towards them, which just means I'm a lot more careful and considerate in my decision making what they do. So the situation is the battle for Kharkov in 1943. And so you have the Donets river here, you've got Kharkov here, and Stalino down here, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporozhye there, Poltava here, and Belgorod here. Those are all objective cities. You get respectively 3 points, 10 points, 8, 4, 12 and 6. So the 3 over there could garner you 22 victory points for the Russian player, essentially. But they're a long way away. And this situation, and comparatively here you get 3 and 10, so that's 13, and another 8 for there. So sort of similar amount, 21 for the front 3. Those are a lot more accessible. Historically, the Soviets managed to take Kharkov, but their kind of offensive ground down, and von Manstein, performing his masterful backhand blow, summoned a host of resources, struck back and retook Kharkov. There's off map here. There's the Mir something river line. This is being heavily defended by the Germans. So von Manstein's plan was to defend here and then sort of heavily defend along that line and then operate around this region. So this is where we're concentrating on in this game. And we start out with the Russians start out going first in every turn, and so they will be on the offensive. Now the way the game works, 2 key concepts are activity points, which you gain by spending C3I points, and then the victory levels. So the activity points are, the Russians start out, there's 2 scenarios, one's a short 4-turn one, one's the whole game. both of them. The Russians start out on 5, the Germans start out on 2. You have 2 Schwerpunk segments, so-called, in each game turn, and in those you can spend 3 CI points to get activity points. You spend those activity points to move and fight, and then there's a third segment where everyone gets to either move or fight without any cost. So every turn there will always be movement or fighting by each side. You have to choose which. You can change it from turn to turn, but not from unit to unit. And then there's 2 Schwerpunk segments where you're basically spending extra operational logistical ability to perform more maneuvers and fighting. In mud turns, you only get one of those Schwerpunk segments. In deep mud turns, you get neither of them. Now, the weather starts frozen, which means that rivers and even the Donets and minor rivers and even the major river, they're not obstacles to movement. So they're fairly easy to traverse and fight over. But as you get up to... so you roll a 2d6 after the first game turn. On a 12, game turns 1 to 5, you get mud. Game turns 6 to 8 on a 11 or 12, but rising up to game turn 12, on a 9 to above you get mud. Game turn 15 to 17, on an 8 and above you get mud. Now if the turn before you got mud, the next turn you get mud, then that turn is actually deep mud. So you can see it's going to be frozen, but rising in the likelihood of there being a mud, and then whenever there's mud, there's another slimmer chance of there being deep mud the next game turn where things grind to a halt. I don't remember seeing that. I guess I know we did see it when I played it face to face. I don't remember how much. I didn't see it at all in the last 7 game turn or 8 game turn game that I played. But anyway, that is, that's looming. Then the other thing is the victory point schedule. Now it's an interesting one, is that the victory points start set at 0, and each game turn there's a range. So for example, game turn 1, it's -6 to 6. So if the victory point level is between those, there's continue the game. If it goes below -6, it's a German victory. And you check it at the end of each game turn. If it goes above 6, it's a Soviet victory. So at any game turn you can have victory, but the scale changes. So the next game turn it's -4 to 10. What that essentially means is this, and you get victory points by reducing a victory point for each knocking down a step. So each unit has generally 2 steps, and some of them have 3 or 4 steps. Over here you have all these substitutes. So all of these represent units that have 4 steps. You can see the Soviets get lots of them. So a few units only have 1 step. So each step lost is a victory point. So if the Russians eliminate 8 German steps and the Germans eliminate only 1 Russian step unit in a game turn, that would be 7 victory points for the Russians, and they would win on game turn 1. So it makes for a very nice thing in that because you remember you've got 3 segments in each game turn, barring mud or deep mud, in which you can move and fight. Say if in the first Schwerpunk segment the Russians gained 8 victory points through step losses, then the Germans have another Schwerpunkt and then the general's segment in which to inflict some losses themselves to even things out, or else they're going to lose the game. Then the other thing you get are those victory points for the cities. Now, as you can see, it's only 3 for that and 10 for Kharkov. These are our immediate objectives. So if the Soviets get Belgorod, they're not going to get it the first turn because you have zones of control here. So, these hexes are all controlled. This unit can move through, but then there's zones of controls here. So you have to fight your way through. It's going to take a while, to at least game turn 2, maybe 3, before the Soviets could take Belgorod. But anyway, that's 3 victory points. So the main objective is dismantling the opposing army, and of course that's going to make it easier then to gain these victory objective cities. Now, if the Soviets say take Kharkov, they get 10 victory points. If the Germans take it back, then those are deducted from the victory points. Now, I ended the game on, I think it was game turn 8 last, and it was so the range for victory was 20 to 30. So that meant that the Soviets had to have 31 or more victory points. They'd taken Belgorod, that's just 3 victory points. So then they had to be ahead of steppe losses by 27 v the Germans. And it was about parity. So the game ended there. The Germans only needed needed the Russians to have 19 victory points, and that would count a German victory. So the point is, the upshot of all that is the Russians have to push. They have to push hard and eat up German units without succumbing themselves, and that I think is how it can be difficult for how it can be an easy win for the Germans. That the Soviets have benefit of more C3I points, at least initially, because you gain each side gains a different amount each turn and less in the mud and deep mud turns, or where you get none in deep mud. But the Germans start gaining more, and so it enables them to sort of respond. So, that's enough of preamble. Basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play out a game turn, and just to show you. So it's very interesting how this game plays, and I think rather than sort of talk about it, it's best to see it. So the first game turn, we missed the administrative segment, but I will play that of the second game turn just so you get to see that at the end of this. So we start with the first Soviet Schwerpunk segment. The weather's frozen, as we already know. So we start with moving the front markers. Now the Soviets get 2 fronts. There's the Voronezh and the southwest front. Their units have to be within 12 hexes, and the hex can pass through an enemy unit and so forth. But basically within 12 hexes of that to be in supply and so forth, and receive activity points to manoeuvre. So those fronts have to move forward along your axis of advance. That's one of the very interesting things on this game already. Obviously the Voronezh front is going to head towards Kharkov so that the Soviets can operate there. But then the southwest, the question is, do you send it towards Kharkov to assist operations there? Do you send it over here to take those backline victory hex cities, or do you send it down this way towards Stalino? Now it's a big question because they either move 0, 1 or 2 hexes a turn. Every segment. So potentially they could move 6 hexes in one turn, but more likely 3. And some possibly 0. So say if they're moving 3, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and they can't outrun their enemy, because if they're ever attacked, they sort of move back to their nearest supply line. So they're always behind your sort of front line, but they do determine your axis. So if the southwest goes up here, then it's within range to support Kharkov, but then you've ruled out taking Stalino. That's 8 victory points down there, and possibly encircling and capturing a bunch of German units. And if it then sort of supports the Kharkov and then moves on, again, you're posting your direction of advance ahead to the Germans so they know something of what's going on. So anyway, we do that first, and we roll on the table Soviet front marker movement over there, and each the Voronezh first, I roll a 7 so it can move 1 hex. So I move it forwards 1 hex on the map, and then the other one I roll 3, so that moves nothing. So he's gone forward 1. Then the next part is administrative movement. Now there's actually none in this game turn, so again I will play that out at the beginning of the next turn, because that's a very interesting part of this game and another key for it. Then we declare in what order combat and movement phases will be conducted. So again, another very interesting and different part of this game. You can move and fight, or fight and move. It's upside down, I know. So you declare that. So, and the Soviets are going to declare move and fight to start with. Then you spend 3 C3I points. Now, the way this works is you decide how many you're going to spend. The Soviets start with 5, and then you roll 2d6 to see how many you actually get. No modifier. Now, the Rochade on the far right, that is the castle move, the castling move from chess. That is the sort of masterful backhand blow. So from game turn 7 on, the Germans can declare Rochade, and you can see they can do that once, but you can see on an average of 7 that gives them a whopping 19, whereby normally you have to spend 3 C3Is to get 15. So that's going to be their kind of that masterful stroke at a certain point that the German player decides. That the German player, you can also save C3I points. So if, say, you don't want to spend any in one Schwerpunk segments, you just don't. And you again, that's another way you can save up to gain more. Germans only have 2 to start, so they might want to do that. Soviets have 6. I'm going to count that as 3 each Schwerpunk. So they spend 3. Then rolling on that table, I rolled an 8, which gives them 15 activity points. Now, because they have 2 fronts, they have to divide those evenly. The odd one, you just decide. I'm going to say the odd goes to the southwest because they are probably going to fight straight away. So that's 7 and 8. So the Voronezh front gets 7 activity points. Now remember, we're moving and then fighting. So we move everyone, and then every combat takes, and it doesn't matter how many units are involved, costs 3 activity points. So if they want to fight here, they have 4, they can move 4 units. If they want to fight there, they can move 5 units and fight, or they could fight twice and move 1 unit here or 2 there. And that's how it works. Remember, you get 2 of these segments, and then you get another segment where it's all free, but it's only move or only fight, and then everybody could fight if you're in position. For the Germans, it's a little bit nicer. You see their units, let's try and zoom in there. Many of their units have coloured NATO symbols. You can see a couple of them are just white. These ones down here, they're just sort of unregistered, but the others, they're formations. If all the units of a formation are stacked together, for example, over here you have 1, 2, 3, they're separated out. So moving each one would cost 1 activity point. If they're stacked together, they get some other benefits, but also they can spend just 1 activity point to move the whole stack. So the Germans get that advantage, which the Soviets don't. So anyway, the Soviets generally have more, at least at the beginning, have more C3I to spend. So on the Voronezh front, what we're going to do is the heavier hitters are here. So this has got 25, 70. You've got tank armies here. So 2 tank armies here. The rest are corps, infantry corps. But the Germans have arrayed some of their stronger ones here. But I think we want to start eating those up. So yeah. So I'm going to move these forwards. So they can go 6. Let's target that one because I think we can get 3 units onto it. So I'll spend 1, 2, 3 activity points. And he can go 2, and these ones can go 6 because they're armoured. So they'll go like that. So that's 1, 2, 3 units have moved. And then I save. I've got one more actually, and then I can do a fight. So we'll have 1, 2 up on the side here to start pinning some German units. No, in fact, 1, 2. Okay, so just kind of try and isolate these. Okay, so that leaves 3 C3I. Then on the southwest front, we've got 8 to spend. And we'll try going around the top because it's harder through the woods here, not over the river. So you can have, the Soviets can have 4 units stacked in a hex. No, sorry, 3. The Germans can have 4 units or a formation counting as 2. So 2 formations in a hex. So okay, let's just zoom in just so you can see a bit what the counters look like. So 1, 2, 3. You can't move around through zones of control. 1, 2. So that's 2 units we've moved. And he actually can spread. So the fronts, you can he can target these units 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to there. So he can actually move some of these. So we'll have 1, 2, and 1, 2 there. Okay, so that was 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2 there again to try and start isolating a unit. So that's all the movement that we're going to do. Then now we move to the combat segment. So let's look at this combat. Oops, right here. So you can choose your combat, so you don't, like if they're in zone of control, you don't have to attack that. So I'm choosing these 3 units are going to attack this one here. And this is very interesting. So you can see you've got the regular combat strength, movement, and then in the middle is a tactical rating. Now, another benefit of being in formation is that he would gain 2 on his tactical rating, but because he's alone, he's not with any others of his formation, his tactical rating is 4. The Soviets have a higher tactical rating of one of their units, which is 5. So what happens is that you have 2 pots with tactical chits, and the Soviets are going to draw 5, and the Germans 4, but then the one with the lower tactical rating can choose to keep 1, and the one with the higher tactical rating chooses to keep 3. If you are equal, then both of you get 2. If your tactical ratings are equal. So having a look over here, we have a look at the chits, and so the Germans I'll choose the German one first. Soviet motorized combat strength halved. They're going to take that because the Soviets have got 2 heavy motorized units. So they throw. You did get German hits halved. That's good. Defender can take hits as hits or retreats. You get between 0 and 3 hits on. Or 4 right at the top on the combat table. That's each hit's a step loss. Then he gets a plus or minus 1 ad hoc reserves and tank support plus or minus 1, with a special note that where is it? German tank support 1 is 3 in it should have a note. You have a couple of charts over here. It's giving you independent heavy tank support is 1, but some again more if at least half of the German units participating are Waffen SS. Waffen SS are the black ones as compared to the grey ones. But I couldn't see that. That must be a little bit of a rot. I couldn't find that. Heavy tank, independent tank. This is tank 1, so it doesn't mention what that 3 is. Anyway, so they're not going to use that one anyway. So they're going to halve the Soviet motorized combat strength, and the Soviets get to choose 3. There's a whopping ±4 on the die roll. They could halve the motorized. Soviets and Germans both get 1 hit. Vodka, under the effect of vodka, both sides will take more losses. Human wave assault, both sides take 1 more hit. Fanaticism, both sides take 1 more hit. That's one way to really wipe out. Now, on balance, the Russians get more replacements, so they could probably afford to take that, and I'm tempted to do it. But German motorized CS halved, that's going to bring them down to 3 from 5, so I'll take that as 1, that as 2, and 1 of those as the 3rd one. Don't want the Soviets to take too many hits at right now. So that's our chits. Then we work out the combat odds. So where are we? Up here. So the blue unit there. So 5 divided by 2 goes to 3, and he's just in clear terrain, not in a town or anything. So that's just standard. Then the Soviets and the motorized are halved. So these 2 are halved. So that's what, 30, 40, 32. So 21 plus 11, 32. So 3 into 32 goes 10. So on the combat results table, you have it going all the way up to 19 to 1. So we're on 10 to 1. We roll 2d6. You can see it can go all the way up to 17 with the pluses. The Soviets have chosen plus 4. So I rolled a 7 plus 4 is 11. So 11 on 10 to 1 is 1, 2. So that's the hit. So attacker 1, defender 2. Now remember, Soviets and Germans scored +1 hit because of fanaticism or vodka or human wave, whichever one you wanted to choose, means that goes to 2, 3. Now he can retreat 2 hexes, but he has to take at least 1 hit. So he takes 1 hit. That's a victory point for the Soviets. The defender always goes first and then retreats 1, 2 hexes. Now the attacker cannot retreat there. He always has to take the hits. So he's going to take 2 hits. 1 has to be from motorized if you're using motorized. So 1 there, 2 there. So that's 2 victory points for the Germans. So we're now in -1 victory points. But because they got some motorized, they can advance 2 hexes. This will be helpful, obviously, for encirclements and so forth. The second hex does not have to follow the retreat route. So we're going to put them there. You can see beginning to cut this fellow off. He's stuck now because you can't move from enemy zone of control to enemy zone of control. So that's going to be a trouble for that fellow later on. So that is a combat. And then we throw those chits back in. Now it's very interesting because the chits also some are removed and some are added as the game goes on. So they're all, you can see there's a big list. Some things are generic like fanaticism, blitzkrieg, human wave, but others there's like 3 different types of independent tank support for each side, and those go up or down depending on, as historically the tank extra reinforcements such as those were sent in, and artillery changes, the available chits change over the course of the game, again depending on historically how much artillery each side was amassing in this sector of the front in that time period. Just to say that each game turn is 3 real turns long as such. So that is the first Schwerpunk segment we have finished. Now we go to the, and it's all marked here. So the admin we didn't do, Soviet Schwerpunk, now German first Schwerpunk segment. So again, it normally starts with administrative move. There's an administrative segment, but then there's also administrative move. That's like moving reserves and pulling units out of the line, shuttle them to different areas on the front. So again, we declare in what order, move and combat. Now, Germans aren't really in position to start fighting back at the... Oh, we forgot another combat. So we had a combat over here, didn't we? So I'll quickly do that one. We got tactical rating 2 versus 5, so we have the same thing. The Germans pull out 2 and can choose 1. Soviet motorized combat strength half. They got that one again. I obviously didn't. No, let's shuffle that up because that was obviously just sitting at the top of the cart. There you go. Probing. German and Soviet hits halved. Okay, so it's just probing attack. Each hit is halved. Then the Soviets get air support, NKVD, fanaticism, artillery support 1, and punishment battalion as well. They can choose 3 of those. So they'll take the artillery, the NKVD, because that gives them big +7 or -7 on the die roll. Now, if the defender's hex was not in range of a front marker, that artillery of +or -5 would be only +or -1, so you can see it makes a big difference. And then we're going to go for fanaticism. Again, so the Soviets and Germans both take 1 hit. So because it's probing, hits halved. Okay, so we have 6 against 30, 48. 6 against 48. How does that work out? That's 5, 8, isn't it? So that's 8 to 1. +7 die roll, and because some, but not all, are going over a minor river, it's -1, so that's +6 on the die roll on 8 to 1, and we roll a 4. +6 is 10 on 8 to 1, goes down to 7 to 1 because we don't have common for 8 to 1, is 1, 2. Soviet and Germans +1 hit, so that's 2, 3, and then German Soviet hits halved, goes down to 1, 2 again because we round up the halves. So that's 1 attacker and 2 defender hits. So the defender is going to retreat both of those, 1, 2, and the attacker has to take 1 on one of his armoured, and then again the motorised can go forward 2, so they actually get to cross the Donets there in quite full strength. So obviously the German could have chosen to take a hit, or even both hits. No, he doesn't have a replacement on that one. He could have taken 1 hit, only moved 1, defended the river line, but he didn't. Probably should have. Still, so that's done. So that's the last 3 activity points spent for each Soviet side there. So back to Germans. So they're deciding this point. So they're going to. They've only got 2. This is their first segment. They're going to spend 1 C3I point. They roll an 8, and for 1 C3I point that gets them 77. Activity points. They don't have fronts, so they don't have to divide it. What are they going to do? 7 activity points. Now, this unit that is surrounded won't get to move. These ones, this one can't move 2. This one could move back. There's one over here that can move up. What can they do? Not a lot at this point. So they're definitely going to have to move back here. So we're going to bring 1, 2 to defend in the woods there. 1, 2 to cover that. And this fellow, 1, 2. Then I think we need more strength this way. So 1, 2 in the woods here. So sorry, what was that? That was 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's got 3 left. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a strong unit. 2 left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Movement's quite easy in frozen terrain. You get different movement rates for motorized and non-motorized, but when it's frozen, it's mostly 2. The motorized have to spend 2 to go into forests and 1 to cross over major rivers. I got 1 movement point left. I think I'll try and move that one. Now the good thing is that moves might be small, but every time you spend an activity point for a move, so say you move out of an enemy zone of control, they're going to have to spend another activity point to get back to you before they can even spend 3 to fight you. So makes maneuver really important in this game. You can't move everyone, but every time you do move, it's a cost to the enemy because they have to pay to move as well. I really like that. So there's no activity points left, so there's no combat, not that the Germans wanted to, because when you see a combat results table, you can see, say on the classic 3-to-1 odds, on average 7 on 2d6, the attacker takes 2 hits and the defender only gets 1. So that kind of like standard median wargaming combat situation favours the defender. If the attacker's got a lot of units and can take the hits, so be it, but if not so great for them. So you want really high odds in this game, and or get really high combat modifiers from your combat chits. But then you have counteracting that, you have things like if you're attacking into forest, it's -2, into marsh -3, against the city -5, etc. Attacking over a major river, if everybody's attacking over it, all your combat's halved. So that's the end of the German Schwerpunk. So now we go to the second Soviet Schwerpunk. There's the same thing again. So they're going to spend their last 3 points. They get 7, which gives them the average 15. That's what they had before, wasn't it? So they get the same. I think we'll go the other way around now. The Voronezh needs to move a bit more. So Voronezh are going to try and target here. So 1, 2. 1, 2. Now let's see what they're doing here. 1, 2 to pin that unit. Oh, I forgot to roll for the front movement. Okay, so he moves 9, that's 1 hex. And the other one moves 2 hexes. 1, 2, made up for the 0 last time. Okay, so we've got 4 more activity points. I think we want to combat here on this fellow, so we can only 5 more points, sorry, so we can only spend 2 more. We'll bring him in there, and then him there. Okay, And then on the southwest, he's got 7 to spend. They're going to want to combat here, so maybe even 2 combats. They put that one there. Maybe a combat. They could do 2 combats now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I could actually have 2 combats from here. And maybe spend the one over there. That's not a good position. I think I'll take it both on the... I'll leave it at that. In case I need 2 combats to completely reduce that unit down. Maybe we can demolish it in these 3 days. So we'll start with the Voronezh Front's combat. That's the end of movement. You have to do all the movement and then do the combat, or do all the combat and then the movement. Okay, so where are we? He's on rough terrain, so that's going to be -1. So he's 4, but we still got 5. So the German has 4 chits now. 4 chits. So we've got. I'll just tell you which ones I choose. We've got Flamethrower, Tank 1, Blitzkrieg, and Leadership from the front. Against the Soviets have Anti-Tank Support, Rocket Projector, Artillery 1, Fanaticism, and NKVD. So the Germans are going to choose Leadership from the front, German -1 hit, or the Blitzkrieg. They would have doubled their motorized combat strength. There's a toss-up which one's going to work well. I think, no, the other one. They're going to have Blitzkrieg. So German motorized combat strength doubled. The Soviets are going to choose anti-tank support, which German motorized combat strength halved. Oh dear, bad luck, Germans. Artillery and rocket projector. So they get, with that they get a whopping. So I can throw the Germans and Soviet chits, 2 of those away, because they cancel each other out. So we end up with a whopping +9 on the die roll. So we just go with the strengths as they are. We got 38, 48, 58, 65 versus 7. So that's 9 to 1. -1 because of the rough, but then +9 because of the artillery and rocket projectors the Soviets are able to bring to bear. So that's +8 on, what did I say, 9 to 1. And I rolled an 11, so that goes at the highest 17 column on 9 to 1. We don't have a 9 to 1, we have 7 to 1, then it goes up to 10 to 1, 14 to 1, 9 to 1. So that's 0 hits for the attacker and 4 for the defender. So the Germans were really wishing they'd chosen, that's the highest result possible. So if they'd chosen the -1 hit, that would have helped them more. So, and because they can't retreat, because, no, they can retreat through zones of control, but they take 1 more hit. So, and they have to take 2. They can only retreat 2 most, so then they would retreat 2 and take 3 hits, or they can stay there and take 4 hits, which is going to completely obliterate them. So they will retreat 2. And take 3 hits, so that's 1, 2, and then we bring on his substitute. Oh dear, this one doesn't actually have a substitute, so he's gone anyway, no matter what. So that's 2 victory points to the Soviets, and they get to advance 2 hexes if they like. So these fellows, infantry can only do 1, but this motorized unit can go up another 1 there. Okay, so that was great. This is better. The Soviets do better already now in concentrating on them. I think before I didn't bring up their heavy hitters quick enough and surrounded. I remember now you have to take out a lot of German units at the start before they can sort of draw back. So this combat here, so 1, 2, 3 from the southwest, and in fact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Southwest could pay for another combat there. They've got one, or they could maybe do one there. But anyway, we'll do this one. So it's 5 against 2. So the German chits are assault engineers or leadership from the front. They'll take leadership from the front at -1 hit, and the Soviets get the heavy artillery, punishment battalion, anti-tank support, NKVD. I'm not rumbling these enough, am I? And human wave assault. They don't need to demolish this fellow, so they won't choose human wave assault. It's not motorized, so they can't use that. So that ends them up with just 5, 6, 8 plus 8 with 3 chits plus 8 on the die roll. Then it's because some of them are attacking over a major river. So sorry. So they're halved. The ones over a major river are halved. So that one's on 2. And then -1 because of the rough. So that we have 29, 30, 40, 42 against 6. That's 7, isn't it? So that's 7 to 1. 7 to 1 minus plus 7. 7 to 1 plus 7. And then the Germans have -1 hit for their leadership from the front. So that's 8. Plus 7 brings up to 15. 15 on 7 to 1 is 0.3. So that goes down to 0.2. So the Germans can take all those hits as retreat, which they will. 1, 2. And the Soviets, these motorized, can move forward 2. We'll put one there to capture that fellow in a zone of control. So now that the Soviets have got still 3 left, so if we liked, these fellows could do a follow-up attack. In fact, let's do that. So we'll put that motorized there. They have another follow-up attack. Or another fight over here. I think this is the best position they have. This is a possibility because this unit is surrounded, so called a concentric attack. On concentric attack, the Soviets will get +1 tactical rating. But I think this is the best bet, this follow-up here. Push this back and then the Soviets could move around even more. Because that's quite a low odds attack. This is going to be higher. And it's risky though, because it's so... is that in a... or here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, we could have these 3 against this fellow again. I think we'll do that. Okay, so the Southwest is spending 3 for combat here. Because that one, I think... the Germans will just move back. The Soviets will get to move to there. Not that much. No, I think that is going to help them a fair bit. Yeah, let's do it. See, this is one of the interesting decisions the Soviet has to make. Because this is really the main thrust, really, Kharkov. But so how much do you spend on heading towards Stalino? You have to divide your movement, and you notice I moved southwest this way rather than that way, so it's already signalling to the German that I'm going for Stalino most likely. So anyway, so we're back to here. So Germans get their 2 chits and select one. And so it's all changes around. The Germans are going to take a hammering now, but it will change around when they on later turns, when they get those, when those units start consolidating, their tactical rating goes up as the formations gather, and they gain more C3I points as well, so you can just move more. Okay, so the Soviets can choose 3, and they're not very exciting ones, so they get +5 dice roll modifier. The Germans can choose 1, there's our only dice roll modifiers, so +1, so those are going to cancel out. So a net effect of the combat chits is +4 to the Soviets, then -1 for the rough terrain, so it'll be +3. And they're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 6 to 1. 6 to 1 +3. And there's no 6 to 1 column, so we go to the 5 to 1. I rolled 8, +3 is 11, on 5 to 1 is 1, 2. So the Soviets take 1, and the defender takes 2. They're going to elect to retreat, both of them. Soviets take 1, but get to move 1 and 2. So pressing hard there. But then the Germans could, we'll leave one fellow behind there. We don't want the Germans cutting us off. Okay, so that is the end of the Soviet second Schwerpunk segment. Now it's the second German Schwerpunk segment. The Germans are going to spend 1 more, their last C3I point, and they rolled a 6, which gives them 7 activity points again. And they're going to have to maneuver somewhat. So the question here is, do they try to fight back, or do encircle maybe those, or do they just pull back? And I don't feel really they have the strength to encircle and take out 3 tank armies with these assorted Kampfgruppe. Even though they could build up, then we might take them on. So I'm going to move these units. This one's stuck. Unfortunate that the Soviets have not fought it yet. He's held from the beginning of the game in a surrounded position. So I'll move this one 1, 2 up to there. This one 1, 2. Notice he can't move here to the zone of control, but he could move there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 2 here. They move their same formation, so they can move as a stack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll bring them back. These are infantry units. They move 2 hexes, so I'm not too worried about leaving that open. We'll leave him there holding it for now, because those will be slow to take advantage of that. And these motorised units, they'll have to stop here and, in fact here. He could move up here, or else they're going to have to go around this way. So what was that? That was 3 more I moved, wasn't it? So 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more movements we can make. I think I'll leave him there. Yes, I'll leave him there. 1, 2. And 2 there. That's it again, no attacks for the Germans. So that's the end of the second German Schwerpunk segment. Now we get to the Soviet generals segment. So you can either move or fight, but not both. And I think just for sake of simplicity, I'm just going to move them to make it more rapid. So everyone can move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, he'll go there. 1, 2. No, 1, 2. Him there to block that. 1, 2. 1. Yeah, he'll go over to there. Oh, I forgot to roll for the fronts again, so he gets to move 1, and he gets to move 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1 there. 1, 2. 1, 2. That front could actually be 1, 2 taken, so I'll move that there. 1, 2. And those will stay where they are. So that's the Soviet general segment, the German general segment. Again, I think we're going to have movement, no combat. He will be out of supply. He will be out of supply at the beginning of next turn, which is when you check it. So I have 1 there. Those ones blocking him there. So they're going to have to fight through. He's just moving back 1 there. He's moving up there. Oh, yeah. I think he'll... Yeah, he'll move back there. And then we get 1, 2 here. You can move into there. Okay, now these little blue, that's it, so that's the end of the German segment. Then we go to victory check. So these little blue markers just remind me, these are the victory point cities. Every major city, the yellow dots are towns, so every major city is a victory point city except for this one and that one there. They're also replacement centres for the Germans, so the yellows to remind me the rare replacements. I don't really need that now because that was just the other game when I was reminding myself how it works. But the reds has the victory points marked on it. Again, it's not really that necessary, it just helps me to remember things. But the blues, I really need reminding, because every time a Soviet unit comes within 3 of one of these victory hex cities, there's a chance of an uprising. There's a little table, and it depends on the town, or the city rather. So for example, Belgorod on a 10 or above on a 2d6, it uprises, and it immediately, that little garrison unit, they don't move, they have no movement, and becomes a Soviet 1 strength defensive unit. You might have a German unit in there, in which case the uprising's quelled. So either the Germans have to keep these garrisoned, or as the Soviets come close, they might revolt or uprise. You roll for it once. If it doesn't happen, it hasn't happened. And you add +1 for every other city that has successfully uprisen. So say if Belgorod had uprisen, Kharkov would uprise on a 4 to 13. Normally it uprises on a 5 to 12. So Kharkov will uprise most likely unless you keep it garrisoned. So the things that the Germans have to think about and I have to remember. So then that's the end of the game turn. We go to the victory check segment. That essentially, any victory cities that have been taken, you adjust it. We adjusted the strength points, step losses as they occurred. And then finally, if there's any Soviets on this side of the Donets, then they get 5 victory points. But if there's any Germans on this side, they get -5. So at this point, we would do -5 because there's German units east of the Donets River. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're on -2. And you can see on a -6, as I mentioned towards the beginning, the Germans would win. So if the Soviets hadn't taken all those step losses, if the Germans had not taken any steps and they'd eliminated 1 Soviet step and they were in this similar position, they would win the game on the game turn 1. The Soviets needed to be at 6, so they needed 8 more victory points. So they had to have inflicted 8 more step losses to win on game turn 1. You can see it's not likely to happen. Okay, so that's the end of the game turn. Now we move it to game turn 2, just the beginning of, so I can show you the administrative segment and administrative movement. So we move the game turn mark and then we check for supply. Units unsupplied are marked as such, and they just at halved tactical rating, movement, combat strength at this point. If they're marked like that, beginning of the next game turn, we flip the outer supply marker onto its red side and we check for attrition. The German units will be eliminated on a 6. Well, get a step loss, and the Soviets on a 5 or a 4, depending if they're the Guard, orangey or regular units, with a modifier for mud and stuff, and if they're in a city, or if it's completely surrounded by enemy zones of control. Okay, so and then the Soviet player determines the weather. So I roll 2d6, that's a 10, and that is still frozen. As I said, 12 plus for mud on game turns 2 to 5. Then if it was game turn 7, the German and above, they gain 2 markers, Frontnahe Auffrischung. One's for the regular army and one's for the black fellows. And that if they don't move for a whole, they can be attacked, but if they don't move and fight for a whole complete turn, they then gain 2 step losses while they're undergoing that. And also from game turn 7, the German can announce that Rocher, the castling manoeuvre, where they gain extra C3I points. Now the German player determines his variable reinforcements, so we roll on a little chart. Game turn 2, he only gets some on a 6. I did roll a 6. So we go for a little receptacle here, randomly pull one out, and we're very unlucky, it's a 0-1, so that's absolutely nothing. Otherwise it could have been a bracketed 2, which is defence only, but still movement rated 2. They're handy for garrisoning towns, cities and so forth. Okay, so that's nothing. Then the Soviet, and those variable reinforcements have a set up hex, generally in the victory cities, or all in the victory cities, I think. Then the Soviet player places their reinforcements. So each game turn you get different reinforcements according to the schedule. And Soviet has 2 rifle divisions. They either come on here or they come on the front marker. I'm going to place them on the front marker there. Actually, that might be easier because I bring them for a combat there. Yeah, I'm going to bring them to combat there, so I'll leave them there. They can move this game turn. Then the German player places his reinforcements. He gets 1, and that comes on entry X 1116, which is Poltava all the way over there. So he places that there along with its fellow who didn't move. And then starting game 2, the Soviet player receives and spends replacement. So again, we roll for that. Variable schedule, I rolled a 1, so that's 1 infantry, and we mark them on the records track, and 0 armour, and it goes up as the game goes on. So they're going to be able to get more and more replacements fed into this front as things go on. That's the German variable reinforcements. So it's for the Germans it starts out few. For the middle they can get more, and then it peters out again towards the end of the game. As obviously they're running out of materiel and men. And then we adjust the chits. So the German gets a new chit, combat chit, that's increased air support, and then they lose 1 combat chit, which is only game turn 1. So essentially their aerial support has got better. They've moved in more, which because the one they lose was aerial support with less modifier. So that's that. Then both players add and remove combat chits. I've done that and adjust C3I markers. So on the game turn track is marked 6 for the Soviets and 2 for the Germans. So they gain those C3I. They both spent all of theirs. They hadn't saved any. So they're starting out with that. In mud, that would be 3 and 1 respectively. Then I'll just start the first Soviet Schwerpunk segment to show you how administrative movement works. Move the front markers, mustn't forget that. This one gets to go forward. Don't want to be attacked by a German. In fact, I think he'll be safe there because I can move that unit on top. And the other one gets to move 1 as well. And then we go to administrative movement. Now this is the delicious part of the game. You have these 2 boxes, A and B, administrative movement box 1 and A and B 2. You also have them on these off map charts as well. There's 1 there and there's 2 for the Soviets. If you want like hidden movement in respect of that. And what happens is you can move any one unit from A and B2 onto the map. Where they would go is adjacent or stacked to any unit, including a front marker, as long as it's not an enemy zone of control or adjacent to an enemy. Then you could move any and all of the units in A and B1 into A and B2, and then you can move 1 unit from the map into A and B1, and it can come from anywhere on the map except for cut off out of supply units. So you're withdrawing units, you're putting them in administrative, then in the 1 Schwerpunk, the next Schwerpunk they go into 2, and then in the general step, or in 3 of those, sequence of 3 of those, whichever, it could be staggered over 2 game turns. You bring them back on the map somewhere else. So that means that, like units like, say, that one which is doing nothing, or 1 here which you don't need, you can bring it off. A bit later, boom, it can come in over here. And that is really combined with the activity points, is how the von Manstein's backhand blow happens. Because as the German, what you're going to find is you're hopefully amassing your reinforcements into the administrative boxes. Get a walloping load up there, and although you can only move one unit out of the administrative box per segment, 3 segments a turn, remember, Schwerpunk 1, 2, and then the general. A formation can bring all of these units. Some German formations are 4 units all at once, and so they can strike, say, 3 heavy blows in succession that way. So in this, I haven't got any to move onto the map. I've got none to move from AMB1 to 2, but I can bring one off and put it in there. And I'm going to do that with this one, because that one's not going far anywhere soon. So units being withdrawn and being ready to feed in and reinforce other sectors. Fantastic. And then we carry on. As you saw in the last one, so the Germans, for example, because they got those 2 from the same formation here, I didn't move them because then they can move as one unit into AMB1 in their Schwerpunk. In their second Schwerpunk, they'll be in AMB2, and then in the general segment, they can come out and plug a gap in the line, or be prepared for a daring manoeuvre. And that is how you play the procedures of the game von Manstein's Backhand Blow. I love it.